Prem of ServiceNow. It's great to have you here today. Thanks for joining me today. What are the emerging technologies that you're recommending that the people in this room in the C-Services pay attention to in the next couple of months and years?
Yeah, it's interesting. So I live in San Diego. I've been coming to the show for probably 15 years, and it's been really interesting sort of to see the waves of the technology changes through the years. 15 years ago, it was storage and compute. 10 years ago, it was the emergence of SaaS platforms and cloud. And now what you're seeing when you walk the floors downstairs, you see a lot of autonomous vehicles. So let's start the conversation there. I think it is by far I would think from a warfighting perspective, the most emerging technology that's going to be adopted and used. But I think we need to take a moment to look at, we made the benefits that it brings. We made warfighting a lot cheaper, but it's still an asset and it's still an expensive asset. So there's a mindset that we still have the need to maintain it, to repair it. So you're going to have technicians that are going and making sure that it's common, always operating. I would say the other one that I'm sort of bullish on is additive manufacturing, otherwise known as 3D printing. I keep seeing all these great stories around the Marine Corps' use of these 3D printers all the way at the edge. There was a story that I read, I think at the end of 2023, where these Marines were printing arm casts on an Osprey in the air. So, just a phenomenal use of being able to use technology at the edge for the warfighter. And I don't think we've really properly exploited that yet. So, just thinking of this ability of I've got a tank and a gear, and I'm making this up, but a gear in a tank breaks. I've got to now wait 6 to 9 months for that tank to be operable because I got to procure it, I got to test it, I got to do all the things. If I have someone at the edge that can just 3D print something, use it for the 3 to 6 months that I need until I get that actual part, from a logistics perspective, we just solved a lot of problems. And then finally, I think, this is the topic that everyone wants to talk about is AI.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to talk about AI. And I think fundamentally it will change the landscape from a personal level, right? We're using it at home, we're using it at work, and we're going to be using it in the field. And I think there's 2 things we've got to pay attention to. One is sort of, when we talk to customers, you get a lot of, we need AI, we want AI, more AI, more AI. It's like, we do want to pause for a moment and talk about what do you want to get out of AI? There's so many things that AI can do, but are you writing contracts? Because that's a nice use of AI in the sense of, that's not something that everyone wants to do. Let's have a bot do that. So using AI with a good intention is important. And then I also think, the ability to, AI is designed to do the remedial trivia things that no one wants to do. But we will never in the defense space be able to take the human out of the loop. So the best use of AI for defense would be let it do all the things that no person wants to do, and it'll do it more correctly. But then at the tail end of that in the workflow, present it to a human that says, is this right or is it wrong? Because even ChatGPT will tell you at the end when it spits out something, it says, check for, there may be hallucinations in the data, check for accuracy.
Yeah. A couple of things. First of all, waves of tech changes. I see what you did there at the C-Services show. That's one thing. AI, the chain of events that you described there, I think is interesting because it's the reverse of what we've seen in other technology breakthroughs in this space, at least in the years that I've been covering it. When cloud came along, immediately people said, well, I need to buy some cloud. I need to buy some whatever the new technology is. AI has been the reverse of that. The technology came along, we saw tons of use cases, and now we're starting to see what you just described, which is, I need to buy some AI. Yeah. I got to go get some. What do you think the reason is behind that? And how do you help the people that you talk to get out of that loop and get back to what, as you described it, what do you want to do?
Yeah, I think it's a couple different things. I see a lot of challenges regarding, let's start with, just interoperability. If you're using AI, for example, to connect 2 systems, there's a lot of risk there. And there's a lot of challenges, and the Navy and DoD in general tends to be a risk adverse for good reason. But we have to deal with things like standards and protocols that, not only from a technology perspective, most military leaders will tell you, technology is not usually the hard part, it's usually the human part. It's usually the political battles and the things that you see as far as this is my data, I'm not going to give it to you, this is your data, so let's stay separate. So we have a lot of challenges getting to a point where we can harmonize across agencies and allied nations as well. There's also, the cyber risk that we're always going to run into, which is something that we have to keep an eye on. You talk about IL-2 data, and when we start sharing information, we got to be very careful about, did we just accidentally create IL-4 data or IL-5 data or beyond? So we have to be very intentful and keep a very keen eye on how we're managing that risk and the controls associated with it. And then finally, I go back to specifically with AI, but challenges across all interoperability is the human factor. I go back to kind of that idea of trust. The technology, again, will get us very far, but to get over the goal line, you're going to need collaboration and a lot of human trust, and we need to single up on what our mission is. And if your mission is the same as my mission, there should be an added trust level there to where now we can collaborate a little bit more. In my new role at ServiceNow, I'm doing work with the global public sector for defense organizations across the world. And it's been really interesting to hear the conversations on their end as far as, hey, we want to exchange data with you. And there's a lot of challenges there, but we want to bring the right people to the table to make sure that happens.
All right, to that point, you talked about connectivity and you talked about interoperability. What's the connective tissue look like among these three things that you talked about at the beginning of this conversation? Autonomy, additive manufacturing, and artificial intelligence.
The connective tissue, I think it's a couple things. I talked about the human element.
Yep.
We'll never be able to take humans out of the loop, and we're doing these for sailors and Marines and airmen and soldiers everywhere. So I think we have to design those systems using those technologies for them in mind, always. And I think because it will always have human elements, I think there is a very big importance on the use of platforms and the use of making sure that we're using workflow platforms to ensure that the tasks that get generated from AI, from additive manufacturing, from whatever it is we're using, that it's controlled and managed in a workflow way, some repeatable way that we can allow not only the back office of Department of Defense, the financial folks, the scheduling folks, the program managers, my sort of world, but the warfighters as well. So we have to use those technologies in a smart way and use it in a designed way that we can allow work to flow through the various organizations in a very controlled manner.
Adam, it's great to have you on the show. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you for being here. Appreciate it.